I'm Sheila Warren. I am the head of blockchain and distributed ledger technology at the World Economic Forum, and I'm based in San Francisco at the Center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution. And what we're doing is focusing on pilot policy projects that can convene industry, government, and civil society to ensure that blockchain technology is harnessed for social good, and that as the increased adoption of this technology is seen throughout the entire world ecosystem, not just the tech ecosystem, we are blocking and tackling any problems that might prevent it from being used for social good. So I think a lot of this goes back to intentionality, and we're trying to infuse, or at times, sledgehammer, the idea of who are you building with, who are you building for, what communities are being included in technology, what communities are being excluded from technology, and how you build applications on the system. I think when it comes time to thinking about governance or protocols, whether it's in a crypto space, like whether it's around Ether or Bitcoin or even Ripple, how are you thinking about when to make decisions about to create new coin? Should there be policies about that? Should it be an open, free-for-all ecosystem? What are the consequences of all of those things? So that's where the forum can play that neutral, objective role in ensuring that we're bringing together various actors, and this is not being decided by one small group that's making decisions that affect all of mankind. The challenge with blockchain is knowing where to start. There's so much excitement about blockchain. We're seeing a desire for adoption from government actors, from civil society, and of course from industry, from various industries, from retail, manufacturing, banking industry. All these systems are really looking to engage with this technology, and I think part of what I find very interesting about this is making that decision about when is blockchain really going to add value, and when could you just use a database, or when could you use something that doesn't really need the energy consumption or the specificity of blockchain or any DLT, and you could go with a different direction. So if anything, I think the problem is how do we narrow the scope? How do we ensure that we're choosing opportunities and projects that are really the right place for us to focus? And how do we ensure that we're building things that can scale across the world? I come to the forum with a deep background in philanthropic aid flows. That means basically the cross-border distribution of philanthropic assets, right? So if you give a donation abroad, there's a lot of fees that are extracted from that, a lot of rent's extracted. And so we find that a lot of the value is eroded. There's also the problem of where those funds are actually going. So are those funds going to the populations they were meant to be serving? Are they, again, being diverted in some fashion, whether intentionally or by accident, in some way that's not about the ultimate good of the people for whom that cash was intended to support. So I think there's a lot of use for blockchain in that particular system. There's a lot of use of crypto, frankly, in that particular system that could be very beneficial. And for me, also at my heart, I think that trafficking is a huge problem. And so we've already talked here at this conference at Ethereal quite a bit about anti-trafficking applications, how you can actually ensure that people are kept safe. To me, whether you're talking about migrant populations or a child victim of some horrible actor, these are places where I think that we should all be deploying whatever tools and solutions we can find to ensure that these kinds of problems are minimized and mitigated in our society. Yeah, so I think this is really about a basic supply chain. So I think we think about supply chain in more the manufacturing context, or the certification context, or even the labor context, where a good is produced. We want to make sure that that same good is transmitted from port to port, or from plane to plane, or whatever it is, and ultimately that same good is delivered where it was meant to be delivered. Aid is not that different. So philanthropic cash is similar. There's a supply chain to it, and right now there are a lot of intermediate actors that extract a lot of rent, fees from where that money goes. There are also just parts of the world where it's very difficult to distribute aid, distribute cash, right? And there are a lot of actors playing in this space trying to figure out how to solve this problem, but not that many of them are yet using blockchain. So if you think about it in a supply chain construct, and you imagine how the tracking, the ledger aspect of the distributed ledger, and the transparency of that ledger, and the inability to override a transaction that happened before in terms of a transaction of transfer from one point to another point, it's the same thing in the philanthropic aid context.